In examples 1 and 2, we learned how to write an equation in point-slope form, and we learned that sometimes it might be necessary to convert it from point-slope form into slope-intercept form. So what I've decided to do is when I teach you how to write linear equations, we're just going to try and write them in slope-intercept form. That's the most common form, the form we use most of the time. Once again, if you feel like you need to write it in point-slope form, or if that has connected with the way you think, feel free to use it that way. I will not mark it wrong. But for the most of you, for the majority, I'm going to teach y equals mx plus b, as you see at the bottom of your screen, which is slope-intercept form. Now, when we're writing a linear equation, what do we need to do? We need to substitute what you know into an equation so that you can find out what you don't know. Pretty simple. We can find out things that we don't know by plugging everything in and then solving for the variable that we are not aware of. And there are many times when you need to be able to write an equation in many different ways. Let me go back to this screen and show you. We have many different times where you're going to have to be able to write a linear equation. If I give you a slope and a point, you need to be able to write an equation. If I give you the slope and a y-intercept, you need to be able to write an equation. If I just give you a graph, you're going to have to be able to find slope and y-intercept, write an equation. If I just give you 2 points, you're going to have to be able to find slope, y-intercept, and write an equation. And if I simply give you a table. In all of these scenarios, you're going to have to be able to write, an equation. So please pay attention and we'll work through some of these. The most important part to remember, as we already said, substitute what you know and find out what you don't know. If we look at example 3, they're telling us that we have 2 coordinate points. We've got the point 8, 1, and we've got the point -2, 9. Now, this is where you can use the slope formula and find out the slope of these 2 points, or we can do the easier method, which I explained, which was create a table. So let's just kind of make these into a table, okay? So now we have ourselves a table. Well, remember, this is x and this is y, all right? So the change in y is going from 1 to 9, so the change in y would be 8, okay? The change of x is going from 8 to -2, so that would be a change of -10, okay? So my change in y over my change in x is 8 over -10. Now we can simplify that -8 over 10 to 4 over 5, also negative. So our change in y over our change in x is the same as rise over run, which is the same as our slope. So we have discovered what m is. We have found our slope, and that is important. Now, in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, I need to find the slope, which is m, and I need to find the y-intercept, which is b. Well, I cannot find the y-intercept yet, but I have enough information to be able to do so. Notice down here, if I have a y, and I have m, and I have an x, I could substitute all of those into an equation and be able to find b. So let's try that. Let's use one of these points that they already gave us. Check this out. They gave me this point 8, 1. They gave me an x, which was 8. They already gave me this x, and they gave me a y. So let's substitute all of those in. So remember, I have y equals mx plus b. Like I said up here, substitute what you know into an equation. So let me take this number 1. This is y, and I'm going to substitute it in for y. So I've got 1 equals. Well, do I already have an m? I do. I have -4 over 5. That's going to go in for m, so I've got -4 over 5. What about an x? Do I have an x? Yes, I do. Remember, in this original coordinate pair, I'm going to put that in for x. And remember, mx is multiplication, so it's better to use parentheses. Okay? And now I do not have my y-intercept. But the nice thing about an equation is if I have if b is the only unknown variable, I can solve and figure that out. Okay? So let's do some math here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply -4/5 times 8. Okay, -4/5 times 8. And that is going to get me -6.4. So I have 1 equals -6.4 plus b. Now to get b by itself, all I have to do is the opposite. This is a -6.4, so I'm going to add that. That becomes a 0 pair, which is what we want. If I add it on one side, I have to add it on the other. This cancels. I'm left with b equals 7.4. So now I have the two things I need. I already had my slope, which was -4/5, and now I have my y-intercept, which is 7.4. Now I can rewrite my equation, including the slope and the y-intercept, and leaving just the y and the x. So I have y equals -4/5x plus 7.4. And that is my equation written in slope-intercept form. Now, some people might argue, well, we don't want to have a fraction and a decimal point or a decimal in the same equation. You feel free to rewrite any of those. If you want, you could rewrite it as y equals -0.8x plus 7.4 if that would make you feel better. Okay, let's look at one more example. But remember the basic concept. We take our table here. We use that to find our slope. Then we put our slope and substitute that into the equation here. We take our y value and substitute it in here. We take our x value, substitute it in here, and then solve to find out what our y-intercept is. Let's do one more. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. Let's try that again. Okay, let's look at example 3. Similar thing. Now we have the 2 points 3, 6, and 4, 2. So I'm going to set them up as a table, 3, 6, 4, and -2. Can even write the table if that helps. Remember that these are the x's and these are the y's. So going from 6 to -2 is a decrease in 8. Going from 3 to 4 is an increase in 1. My change in y over my change in x is -8/1, or simply -8. So I have already discovered that m equals -8. Now I need to find out what my y-intercept is. In order to do that, I'm going to substitute some things that I know into the equation. Remember, I want to use y equals mx plus b. What am I going to substitute in? Well, I just found the slope, so let's put that in. I know -8 is going to go in for m. If I use one of these coordinate pairs that I already had here, I can use 6 for y, so I'm going to put 6 in here. And for x, I can use 3, so I'm going to put 3 in there, and I still don't know what b is. Well, because b is the only variable left that we don't know, we can solve and figure out what it is. -8 times 3 is -24. So 6 equals -24 plus b. I have to add 24 to both sides. And that's going to cancel and leave b equals 30. Now I have the two things I need. I know that m equals -8. I know that b equals 30. So I can rewrite my equation. Y equals -8x plus 30, and that is my equation written in slope-intercept form. Okay? All right, guys, let's see how we can do on these problems. Check out the got it's at the bottom of the page, bottom of page 223, and try to write those equations in slope-intercept form.